Right.
Here in Orlando.
Photos of vigils run over you.
Four, three, two, one.
I'm Roger Simmons. Welcome to a special edition of Orlando News Now, part of our continuing coverage of the mass shooting in Orlando. Today we have some Sentinel reporters and a columnist to talk more about the coverage and what's going on. First, let's start with two reporters who have been following this situation for us, Stephanie Allen and Alyssa Cherney. So Stephanie, give us the latest on this. I know that we now have IDs on 36 of the 49 shooting victims. We're still waiting to get identifications on some of the others, and they say they've identified all of them except one so far.
Yep, they've identified 48 of the 49 victims, and they say they have preliminary identification on that last victim, but they're trying to confirm that. And they're working all throughout the morning to notify these families. They're all stationed at a senior home off Delaney Avenue. Families can go there to be alerted if one of their loved ones is in this. And basically this morning they've updated us on sort of the timeline of how this all happened and given us some more details about when officers went in, how many hostages he had inside bathrooms with him, how they busted through a wall and pulled people out of the wall and then went in like with guns blazing trying to kill this man, and they succeeded.
And I know part of this, there's been some questions about were there multiple shooters? I know Orlando police finally put some of those rumors to rest earlier today, tweeting out that as far as they know, this guy acted alone.
Yeah, they're saying he acted alone, the only shooter inside that club. The FBI is investigating. They have a whole nother investigation going on about what was going on before this in his life and if he had any accomplices before then, but OPD is saying that he was the only person inside that club shooting.
All right, and President Obama addressed the nation, or actually he made some comments that were broadcast across the nation on all the networks and the local stations, and he gave kind of a little bit of an update on what the FBI perhaps knows about the gunman.
Yeah, so they're saying, Obama said that it looks like his ties to the Islamic State, which he professed in a 911 call while he had hostages in the bathroom with him, seems to be a homegrown. He found ties through online, and it doesn't look like he has any actual ties to anyone overseas.
To do that. So what do you expect to come the rest of the day? Just more names coming out? And I know we were discussing before we went on air, possibility, we hope not, that the death toll could go up because we know some people are still hospitalized at this point.
Yeah, there's several people in the hospital right now who are gravely injured. So far, of the people who went to ORMC, none of them have died, but there are a lot of people who are still critical. Hospital officials just tweeted out not too long ago that they're optimistic, but we never know.
Right, so they're in our prayers, obviously. Alyssa, you have some information about the gunman, Omar Mateen. Tell us about that new information you've uncovered.
Yeah, this morning we learned kind of shockingly that the man who went into the nightclub and shot it up, killing 49 people, was an armed security guard at a St. Lucie County courthouse. And that he had bought, we learned this yesterday, that he had bought the guns used in the attack just this week. He had 3 guns on him total, 2 in the actual club with him, a assault rifle and a pistol, and then 1 in his car. And we have a reporter in St. Lucie County who is trying to learn everything about him, about his divorce. And yesterday we heard from his ex-wife in an evening press conference when she talked about him and called him abusive and unstable.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that President Obama mentioned in his address is that the FBI, I guess, is going to try and give us some more information about the investigation they had into him and perhaps how, if they were keeping tabs on him, how was he able to buy these guns and carry out this attack?
Yeah, well, he has no criminal arrest record in Florida, and so there is nothing barring him from legally purchasing firearms. I believe we just sent a reporter to the firearms store where he got the guns. But you know, he was under 2 separate investigations by the FBI. The FBI talked to him 3 times before this unfolded, and so it raises a lot of questions for the agency.
Okay, well, great job. You guys are doing a great job, and you'll keep us updated on that. Columnist Scott Maxwell had a great column in the Orlando Sentinel this morning and on orlandosentinel.com. And Scott, you actually found out about this. You were on a vacation and actually just happened to come back and find out that we had a tragedy right here in the City Beautiful.
Yeah, my son and I were on a father-son weekend cruise out of Port Canaveral, and when we docked around 5:30 a.m., I turned on the TV, and confused me a little bit because it was all about Orlando, and I remember thinking, but we only get CNN International. And the story was developing. So now we're struck with sort of a contrast between what the world is talking about and what people here in Orlando are talking about, and I'd submit they're two different things.
They are, and it's really, if you saw some of the tweets yesterday between Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and people talking about gun control, people talking about gun rights,
Absolutely.
It's getting very ugly, but fortunately, here within our city, that's not the case.
And I think you just highlighted the dichotomy. I think Donald Trump's tweet is one of the ones that's gotten the most attention. Just a few hours, well, literally while bodies were still being counted, Donald Trump tweeted out, "I appreciate the congrats for being right about radical Islam." Congratulating yourself on social media while the corpse count is still going up isn't really, I think, what most people here in Orlando were talking about. Some of the media Twitter things were starting to talk about things like, well, if more people in the club had guns, if any of them been on, we would have been able to solve this. I don't know how any of those people know whether any of those people had guns. I mean, for all we know, all 50 could have. I mean, the point is these debates are starting to play out in the political atmosphere before even facts are out. But here in Orlando, we're seeing something that's really different, and that is people who just want to help and just want to make a difference. And we've seen it manifested itself with lines that wrapped around the blocks for blood banks. We've seen it with people just standing on street corners and wanting to wave a placard saying, "I support, I love you," whatever it is, anything they can do. Nonprofit and business leaders huddled, we learned yesterday, to try to say we're going to have long-term needs in this community. And I think that's what folks here are focused about, even as sort of the political and campaign rhetoric heats up elsewhere.
And it was nice to see that, we had a front page editorial on the Orlando Sentinel front page today talking about our community coming together. And in that, we mentioned a hashtag, Orlando United.
Right.
And talking to our social media folks, they tell me that hashtag's been used more than almost 30,000 times today, which is nice to see the community coming together. And like you said, there'll be plenty of time to discuss all the politics and everything else with this, but right now it's the time for people to come together and help those in need.
And I would add that I have seen a lot of variations of hashtags. In fact, I ended mine by saying Orlando Proud because of the way we responded. I've seen Orlando Proud, I've seen United Orlando, I've seen Orlando Love. I have not seen Argue Orlando. And so while the politicians are talking about it, it's not what the people here are focused on.
Right. All right. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, my
Great.
pleasure.
As we mentioned, we now have identities of 36 of the victims of the shooting, and as I've mentioned in previous updates, Orlando Sentinel is committed to making sure we write about all of the victims of this tragedy. Here with me are two reporters who have written two of the latest obituaries we have on some of the victims. I have Kyle Arnold and Steve Hudak. And Kyle, tell me about Eddie Justice, which he's, I believe, one of the youngest victims, or the youngest victim.
Well, he's 30.
I'm
He is
sorry,
a younger guy.
I apologize.
Not quite young, but that brings up a point. These were a lot of young victims that had a lot of life in front of them and were working in vibrant careers. One of the interesting things about Eddie was that Eddie spent the last hour or so of his life texting his mother. He said, "I love you, Mommy." He said some really, things, and he knew what was going on. He knew the shooter. He told his mother about that. It was a really tragic thing that played out for her, and she didn't find out until this morning that, her son was one of the victims of this horrible event.
Right. I can't even imagine what that would be like. That's just an awful situation. But at least one of the things we can do is remember him and let his story be told about this as well. Steve, you did Amanda. It's helping.
Alvear.
Thank you with the last name.
Alvear.
Yes.
Alvear. 25 years old, but let me just say, 30 is young. I mean, I'm 56 years old, so 30 is young. Amanda was 25, and she had an incredible life and was transforming her life. She had lost 180 pounds over the last 2 years through working out, and she had gastric bypass surgery. Her brother says that she was tough, the toughest person that he ever knew, and he said she was stubborn, but she was loyal and the friendliest person she ever knew. She went with a group of friends to Latin night at the Pulse. She liked to go to lesbian and gay bars because she said it was fun. It was they were just more fun places to go, and she felt safe there. Mm-hmm. And she also had used social media that night. She had a Snapchat, which some people captured, of her dancing in the club, and then the last image is she hears gunfire, and you can kind of see in the image of her kind of ducking down. It's just terrible. She also was a pharmacy tech and wanted to be a nurse. Her brother said all she wanted to do was help people.
Right. I mean, it's just a tragedy. I know the victims range so far that we know in ages from 19 to 50. I don't know another word to say other than tragic. I mean, you see these lives lost.
Let me say one other thing about Amanda, which I thought was really interesting that her brother said about her. I had mentioned to him, I said, you have to be really angry about this. And he said, no, she wouldn't want hate spread. She wouldn't want hate spread in her name. She would want love spread. She would want you to hug your family, and she'd like you to have a good time doing it. I thought that was pretty amazing.
That is amazing, and that's great advice for all of us to hug each other and get rid of the hate at this point, because there was so much hate involved in this that maybe love will prevail, hopefully.
Well, we hope so.
Definitely. You can read all about the victims of the shooting at orlandosentinel.com. As I mentioned, we're going to have all those online and in print. Online, it's orlandosentinel.com/pulse victims. Can take you right to the stories about those, and I know you guys are going to be busy with other ones as well. Today, for the rest of the day, we're expecting more updates. We hope to get more names of some of the victims. We'll also, as we mentioned, we'll hear what the FBI has to say about the shooter, and we'll bring you more information about just how Orlando is coping with this tragedy, what Mayor Buddy Dyer called the most difficult time in Orlando history. So stay with orlandosentinel.com for coverage of the mass shooting. For orlandosentinel.com, I'm Roger Simmons.